Hey everyone, welcome to episode 110 of New Slang. I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and we cap off the week being joined by singer-songwriter Jonathan Terrell. Jonathan has this excellent new album coming out in a few weeks called Westward. It's officially out Friday, August 21st, and as you'd expect, we talk about the writing and the recording of Westward heavily during this conversation. And I'm telling you, one of my favorite, most interesting, and intriguing albums of the year. There's this rich complexity to Jonathan's writing and sonic palette. There's nothing paint by numbers or cliche about this album. Westward is filled with these incredibly dark, fever dream-esque vignettes and campfire stories. You get that smokiness of the campfire too. Billows of smoke and piles of ash mixing with those dark tones of the high desert. Pastels blending into that darkness. There's an interesting sensation that happens on Westward as well. You get these moody rhythms that harken back to dance halls and crowded dive bars, but then also he makes you feel incredibly alone, where you're just surrounded by nothing but the midnight moon and an endless night sky of purples, blues, and blacks with that scattered array of constellations and far-off galaxies. It's in these stark scenes where you're hyper-focused on these characters and their intimate stories. I also love how Jonathan mixes in these moments where you feel that rush of the open road. Have you ever stubbed your toe or smashed your finger in a car door or something? You get that intense rush of blood pumping and adrenaline. It's always whenever you've not really been paying attention or just been on autopilot. It's strange because it's like you're being shaken awake and you get this like real rush of being alive. Your face brightens. That specific feeling that I'm talking about right there, that's on this record as well. You just feel alive throwing a song like Never Make a Sound on. Roll the windows down, turn the radio up. You have that lead foot on the gas pedal. It's all of that, but also that feeling of knowing that you don't have anything to do for the rest of the day. That sense of freedom. Again, I really love Westward. It's going to be coming out August 21st. Be sure to check it out. Today's presenting sponsor is Desert Door Texas Soto. If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm from the heart of West Texas and absolutely love everything about West Texas. And that's really why I love Desert Door so much. You may be asking yourself what exactly Soto is. Well, it's a premium spirit that's similar to a tequila or a mezcal, but for my money, it's a little bit more refined and smooth. There's a sweetness and faint hints of vanilla and citrus, and it's also as versatile as your garden variety vodka. At its core, Desert Door is authentically West Texas. They go out and harvest Soto plants from the wild and bring them back to their distillery over in Driftwood, Texas. So next time you're at your local liquor store, get a bottle of Desert Door. For more info, check this episode's show notes. If this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly suggest hitting that subscribe link. If you just did, I'm giving you a virtual high five right now. New Slang is over on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, and basically any and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go check out the New Slang merch store, grab a koozie, some stickers, buttons, and magnets. Any bit helps. I'll throw a link into the show notes. And if you're into playlists, go check out Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee and the Neon Eon playlists over on Spotify. The Neon Eon is for all your nostalgic 90s country needs, which there's going to be more Neon Eon related stuff coming your way pretty soon. And then Tom Mooney's Cup of Coffee is a regularly updated mix of new Americana and country music. It's also a really great hint at who I have coming up on the podcast. So yeah, go follow those. Okay, that's enough rambling for this intro. Here is Jonathan. I guess like where we can start off is, you just mentioned, kind of like this new album has been in the works for a minute. And I know you had a bunch of songs that you were thinking about for Westward, and it got dwindled down to 10 songs. What is that process like of having all of these songs that are potential for a record and then kind of, working it down, dwindling it down? making it more of a fine piece collection? What's that process
well,
like?
Well, so I think I had about 26 songs written for this one, and then I kind of started like looking at, how they, like the story that they were all talking, like speaking together, and like I think I was just kind of like trying to find out what like the unifying message was, and like just kind of an overall vibe. So there's, some stuff that was like a little bit like, there's things that are a little bit more bluegrass or something like that. Like, from the EP, Love Can Find You Anywhere. Stuff like that, is a cool, like, I wanted a big, like windows down kind of desert driver kind of album. And while it fits in that category, it like the instrumentation was a little bit different than the rest of the record. So that song was originally recorded for the album, and I was like, well, I'll just save it until the world has a global pandemic, and I'll just put it out then, I think just like the communication between the songs was what I was looking for. And like, I kind of, whenever I was getting a hold of grasping the idea of the record, I wanted it to like show this kind of like the romance of the American West was what it's about, Mm-hmm. And when I was touring in Europe, I was hanging out with this guy one night, and he was like, this French guy, and he was like, man, after thousands of years of art and culture in Europe, like the one thing that we can't replicate is the American West, and everybody here is just obsessed with it. And I was like, wow, I live there. That's crazy. So, I think I just kind of wanted that like desolate romance and that kind of like that driving perseverance, but also that kind of empty freedom and like, like wide open spaces. So there's a lot of less is more on the record, and, kind of like we would throw a bunch of shit on the tracks and then like start peeling away layers and be like, can it still stand up on its own without this? And that was kind of like, just the vibe for it was like, let's throw everything at it and then peel it all away and see what it can do on its own, cause I mean, if it's a good song, the song will hold up, it's not like the bones will be strong enough to support the rest of the song,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You definitely get that Southwestern American West vibe listening to it. And what I find really interesting happening here is I think there's moments where you feel like you're in the middle of a bar or a club or something like that, but you also have these moments where you just feel like you're by yourself, and it's like 3 a.m, and you can just feel the chill of like the desert, and I don't know, like there's a few of these songs you very much tap into that scene and that mood.
Well, I think, a lot of these were born in these clubs, we were doing these dance halls and stuff. And so it's like, like I already wrote the next 2 albums, that were like supposed to come after this, so, and it's odd, like this, this album, like, I wanted it when I started writing it, I was like, I'm going to write this dope ass country record. And then I went and saw Chris Christopherson in Dallas with my buddy, Josh T. Pearson. He's a songwriter also. And, I was having some trouble with a couple of these songs. Like they were just like, I'd recorded them a couple times, done like all kinds of demos for them, and they weren't sitting right. I could tell, after like playing so many dance hall shows and like honky tonk and stuff, it's like, I knew they wouldn't turn a dance floor, And so it was kind of like, okay, what's wrong here? And I went and saw, Chris Christopherson, and a lot of like at his show, I just kind of had this like epiphany kind of thing of like, oh yeah, this guy is like a complete servant of the song. These songs work so well for him because he does exactly what the songs tell him to do. And you're trying to make these songs into like something else and not just listening, not just sitting down with the songs and going like, what can I do for you? How do you want to say what you got to say? And that was kind of like a breakthrough moment where I like went back and like reworked a few of the songs. Cause we had a lot of the record done and went back and listened to it after the first month. And I was just like, man, this shit ain't going to fly, you know? So we just pushed pause on it for like, I think 4 or 5 months and just banged those songs out on the road and got them tightened up, you know, got them where we could see like a change in the crowd. You know, we could see a change in expressions on their faces whenever we play a certain song a certain way and be like, now we're talking, you know, now we're having a conversation.
Right.
You know? And so that's kind of like, we all can't like, and the band was like really had my back on that too. And I was like, hey, sorry guys, you know, we're going to scrap like, you know, a couple of weeks worth of work, you know, like, cause it's just not right, you know, but, you know, and it was a tough call, you know, it's like, not like I make a lot of money, you know, being a touring musician. So, but I didn't want to like put a step forward and it not be like my best, you know?
Right.
And my producer, Stuart Sykes, you know, had my back on that. He was like, yeah, man, like, I'm not trying to put out a crummy album either. And, you know, so, you know, I think a lot of that, there's a lot of that. And, I'm really glad we did it, you know?
Right.
Cause, I just didn't think I was like really in a great headspace when we started working on them, you know, but after that Christopherson show, like the songs really started like moving me around and, you know, putting me in position to speak for them, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's really interesting about all that is I think sometimes as an artist, you can hold on to something, maybe too long and like before like showing it to an audience. And it's like,
Sure.
well, you know, this is for the record. I don't want to be playing all these songs off the record if the record's not out yet. But there is something to playing songs and like working them out, figuring out what they feel like in a live setting before like they get recorded. You know, like you can figure out a whole lot about what works and what doesn't. And just like that liveness of like the spontaneity, if you will, of reading a room and like the room interacting with you and going, oh, you know what, this actually works a whole lot better. Let's go that way.
Yeah. I mean, that song I just put out, Never Makes a Sound, that started out as a waltz that I wrote on piano, about this like 70s, you know, like art film. And then just kind of like, it just like came to life. And then when we put the song out, I've had so many messages of people going, yes, man, I've been dancing to this song at the White Horse for a year, and I've been waiting for you to put this track out so I can listen to it in my car, you know? And it's like, and I think that's really cool too, of like, they already know it. And it's like, now they get to hear, you know, the work that me and the band put in behind it, you know, to make it like sound badass in their car, you know?
Yeah. Like
so,
that.
I mean, I think it's a great introduction, and I don't feel weird about like hoarding songs and like, you know, I just want to make sure that they're right when they come out, you know?
Mm-hmm. You know, that's really interesting, the waltzing aspect, because yeah, like the version you put out is it has like that, you know, that Springsteen kind of, just raw energy, you know, blazing down the highway, windows down,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And like that it's interesting how a song can change from like, not necessarily polar opposite ends, but you know, it just change in feel and tone and mood.
Yeah. Well, I think I needed to be in that quiet place to like sit down at a piano and like figure out the chords and like, you know, be able to just be still for a little bit to write those words, you know, cause it's like, they're kind of, you know, ethereal and like, you know, they kind of deal a little bit with reincarnation and like kind of, you know, shedding your skin and like kind of this rebirth of like who you want to be instead of like who they're, you know, what everybody else wants you to be, you know? And I think I needed to be in that quiet place. And then like, once the message was clear, then I was ready to like kick down the fucking door with the song. And I'm like, all right, we got something to say now, you know?
Right. Yeah. How often, or is it mostly whenever you're writing, you need that quiet space that you just let me turn off the world for a while and just like, you know, let me close all the doors. Please don't bother me. Let me just try and figure out what that world is. Is that what you typically need when you're writing?
Sometimes, I mean, yeah, like sometimes I'll, you know, I get a song, like a song will come to me like when I'm in a quiet place. It's just, but I think it's just, there's like this antenna that I've kind of figured out how to like keep on, where I keep like physically and mentally aware when a song is like approaching me, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's when a song is like, you know, I get this little buzz in my, you know, like in the top of my chest, and I'm like, oh shit, like something's happening. Like there's like a change in the energy, like I have like a change in the weather, and you're like, oh, something's stirring. I need to drop everything right now and be present. And I think like for a long time, I'll just be like, I mean, in my 20s, you're like, well, I got shit to do, or I'm, you know, trying to hang out with this person, or I'm doing whatever, you know, I want to go swimming, you know, and I think now I'm just like way more aware of it. Like, you know, it's that kind of lightning in a bottle. And I think I've kind of just been learning how to tap into the barometer for that, you know?
Yeah. It's so strange because like, obviously the art, when inspiration can hit at any moment, and it's very, very mysterious, and it's very just, it can be spur of the moment, and you can't like schedule like, hey, I'm going to be inspired today at 10 o'clock in the morning. And but there is something to also like trying to figure out how to, I guess like get all the other parts right. You know what I mean? Like the practice, it sounds strange, or boring, or, you know, just kind of like stripping away the magic of it. But, you know, the practice of once that inspiration hits, oh, I got my tool set and I can actually catch it.
For sure. Yeah. And I think like, you know, like reading a lot, and like, you know, I do a lot of yoga, and like, you know, just kind of like figuring out how to like be quiet for a little bit. But, you know, those really helped me out. But also, you know, I've been in co-write scenarios where like you got something in the beginning, something's happening, and then you kind of lose it. And it's like, you know, like I'm not afraid to go, you know what? Hey, I think we missed the moment. And anything that comes in after this is going to feel pushed or like just kind of like made up. Mm-hmm. So why don't we just hang out and like call it for the day, or take a break, or like, you know, stop where we are and go home and look at it and revise, and then send me your notes on it. And then maybe we'll pick it back up later. But like, if it's, you know, if it's not right, you know, it's not right. Like I feel like a good song is a good song is a good song. And, you know, it just kind of, they feel organic and they feel connected to something bigger than me, you know, and that's what we're trying to get, you know? So it's kind of like, and if you don't have that, then it's just a song, you know, then it's just like a middle album track, you know, filler. You know, that's like, oh, this could be cool, or it has a cool groove, but it doesn't really say much, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in like, you know, getting the dirt on every one of them, getting like the grease on them, you know?
Yeah. You know what's so I'm like kind of infatuated with the co-writing thing because there's
it's great. I just started doing it a couple of years ago, and it's like it's opened up a lot of new passageways in my brain. You know.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, like I think when you bring someone in who is doing the same thing as you, like they can bring out so much good in you, and you can do the same thing with them. And there's a lot of really great songs written that way. But also, like, you know, everyone has had those rights where, you know, they both go, this is never going to get cut, but we have to, we got to finish it. And I wonder, like, if that's ever, you know, it's just kind of unspoken between the two. Like, we got to finish this, but neither of us are really actually interested in it.
I mean, there is sometimes situations like it's like you're doing a service. Mm-hmm. I feel like to the other person, and like thirdly to the song of like, okay, you know what? We came here to do a song. We're gonna fucking finish it. It might not be great, but we're gonna do it. You know, but also it's kind of like, you know, when I would go up to Nashville and do co-writes and stuff. You know, it kind of took me a long time to like weed through the people that I didn't want to write with, you know, and the people that were like first on my list to call and be like, hey man, I'm in town. Love to do it. You know, like let's knock one out. But, you know, I had to write with a lot of people to figure out like who I really connected with and who really got me, and like, you know, who I really wanted to, you know, like, chase down a song with, you know. And so, and I met a lot of awesome guys that were just like, we just didn't have that connection, you know?
Right.
But we're still pals, you know, we just don't write that much together, you know?
Yeah.
But like, that's why you kind of see those like songwriting teams and stuff. You get like those 1 or 2, 3 people that are just your fucking go-getters. And like, they don't really write too much outside of that group, you know, because they're just like, well, I got the A team right here. We can do anything, you know. So-and-so writes great melodies. So-and-so writes great choruses. So-and-so has the wisdom, you know, and it's just kind of like all you guys together, you know, build the super Power Ranger of songwriting. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I always think is like how there's some songwriters, like probably like my the example that sticks out for me is my buddy William Clark Green. He will come up with like, he'll have like these ideas or something, and then he kind of goes, oh, you know, this is an idea I need to go and write with Ross Cooper, or like, oh, this idea is more of a Brandon Adams idea, or this is and I find that interesting too. Is that kind of how you are? Like if you have like, oh, this maybe is in someone like a specific person's kind of wheelhouse. Do you kind of save up those ideas?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had some songs that you're like, you know, whose wheelhouse this is in. Just, yes, this person exactly would know what to do, you know? It's like the same thing of like, you know, oh, you know, I need to borrow a ladder. Like, oh, this neighbor has one. This neighbor knows exactly what to do, you know? It's kind of that deal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's, and also sometimes it's kind of like, you know, like I've got a lot of buddies that are, you know, I mean, a lot of buddies, I would say like 90% of my friends are musicians. And so it's kind of like, there's that, hey man, we've never written together before. Like we should hang out and like, just see what happens, you know? Mm-hmm. And, yeah, so that's a cool thing too, you know, of just like expanding your friendship with a song. And then once you finish a song, you might be like, you know, I don't even know if this song would fit in my band, but we should show it to so-and-so. This might be perfect for them, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't say that I write every single song. No, I mean, I definitely can say, I don't write every single song for myself. I've definitely written songs and finished songs that I knew that I'd never play, but I knew that like, you know, this would be perfect for so-and-so, you know?
I wanted to talk to y'all one more time about our new partners at Desert Door and offer up a handful of my favorite ways to drink it. Get you a Mexican Coca-Cola, have a couple of swigs, then pour yourself some Desert Door Oak aged in, toss in a lime wedge or two, or how about this? Pour some Desert Door into a mug, top off the glass with some ginger beer, squeeze in a lime, or for all you ranch water drinkers out there, get you a Topo Chico, take a couple of pulls off, and then pour in some Desert Door. Toss in a couple of lime wedges, and now you have a mighty tasty and refreshing ranch water. Remember, Sotol is as versatile as vodka and has a more refined, smooth, and a more complex palate than tequila. It's rich and balanced, and whatever your go-to drink is, it'll make it that much better. And again, it's inherently West Texas. It tastes like home. For more info on Desert Door, check our show notes. All right, that's it for Thomas Mooney's Cocktail Minute. Let's get back to the show. There's something about if you think you can maybe play every song that you've written, especially since we do have this artistic cross between consumership, right? But it feels like sometimes if you, I don't know, like you could be selfish to say like, oh, I'm not writing something if I can't play it, you know? I think like even if you don't play it, if you know like this isn't going to help me or this isn't going to be a song I do, it still is the pursuit of the song, and it still like can mean getting better at something that you're going to do later on. Yeah,
we definitely like, you know, I've definitely finished songs and been like, you know what, I'm never going to play that song, but it was a great exercise. Mm-hmm. It took me there. I got my brain in that headspace. I was present with what it needed. And you might look back at it and be like, it's not the best song, but you know what? It's a song and it was a good exercise, you know, because like that song, you might have like one great line in there that like, you know, you're looking down the road a year later and you're like, man, I just wish I had a line for this part. And you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I got this kind of, you know, junkyard of songs that we can go salvage stuff out of, you know? They're like, well, I got this one good line in this one mediocre song that I don't need. So let's just take it, you know, for the better, you know, to make the better song even better, you know?
Yeah. That's interesting because I've probably done like, I guess 2 or 3 interviews this past week, and that has come up in each of them. Do you like go back and like, you know, scavenge over old songs and find things that work and go, hey, let's plug this in here? And it's been one yes and like one no, like and they were like just kind of I don't know, it's interesting how not necessarily like these are lines that we all draw, but what side you're going to be on. But it's interesting how like some that works for some people and then other people are like, no, I can't, I don't, that's part of that song and I just have to move on or something.
Sure. I mean, I get that too. It's like, you know, I mean, I have other songs that I'm not necessarily using that have lines that could be used. And I'm like, well, that one's not ready to go yet. Like, I'm not ready to let that line go yet, you know? Because you kind of do forsake that song when you do. You're like, okay, well, I took a piece of you and I'm either going to have to replace it with something better or like scrap it all together. You know, it's not gonna run without the alternator, you know?
Yeah. You know, I've seen some, I guess like co-writing and writing, and I've been present for some of that kind of stuff just off to the side in a journalist kind of way. One of the things I found probably most interesting is the amount of filler lines that people will use to get to a place and go, you know, this isn't the best thing right here, right now, but it's going to get us on to the next thing. And then we can like, you know, polish that up later. How often do you?
Yeah, little placeholders for sure. And I mean, I always, you know, like, I mean, you can ask anybody that I write with, it's like, we'll start throwing lines on the table and like, you know, we'll just rattle them off. And then like, we'll get, oh, cool. That one's good. Or even if they're like, I like that, but I don't think it's great. And you're like, okay, cool. Beat it. you know, just beat the line. Like nobody's mad about getting their line taken out. Like just
Yeah.
beat the, if you don't think it's good, then like beat it, show me something else, or I'll try to beat it, you know, and we'll get there at the same time or something, you know?
Yeah. That's
so I don't know. I think for me is like when I was younger and I was trying to write songs, it was like, it felt a lot like how I wanted people to see me. And it felt a lot like I'm in charge of my image and what people think of me by like how cool I make myself sound, or, you know, how like rugged I make this song sound, or like people think I'm tough or some cowboy or some shit. If I sing about this, or if I talk about this. And it's like, I don't know. I think like, you know, as you get a little older, I mean, I'll be 40 next month. And I think just kind of like, there's, you know, I think you lose your fear of that vulnerability, you know, and you just kind of let it happen. And it's like, well, so what if they think this about this one song? Like it's a song. It doesn't necessarily define my entire life. You know, it's like one line in a song, you know, but I think there's a lot of pressure when I was younger to like kind of mold my image of, you know, what people thought, you know, or how people, you know, should see me, you know. And I think I'm, you know, trying to chip away a lot at that and like really just, you know, ask a song what it wants from me, and like, what, okay, cool. Like, what can I do for you? You know, I'm just here. I wouldn't be here without the song. So, you know. Yeah,
I think like, I don't even know, like if people have been listening, the last few episodes or this last year, they're going to go like, oh my God, he's going to bring this back up again. But, I think there's something about the longer you do this, the longer you're around music or whatever the thing is, you strip away the romanticism, and it's fine to be like, you know, this isn't one of those things where, just because some people make it easy doesn't mean it's easy. And you're okay to like, just, you know, do the throwing out lines, something you may sound stupid, in your mind or something, but like that may make that person think of, oh, you know, if we actually twist this around, or, you know, you don't know what on the practical side, the tips and tricks of the trade, you know, what that, like, it's more than fun to be able to tap in and use all those versus the, oh, you know, I was writing and I got inspired and, you know, like it just all came to me in one burst, you know, or whatever the case is, you know.
Well, I mean, I definitely still get romanced by songs. I get romanced by my songs, you know, that are like, cause I feel like once you kind of get into a place, it's like, you got to walk around it. You got to pull them on and walk around it, you know, let them see how they fit and like get them comfortable. And so it's kind of like when you finish a song, you're like, okay, cool. This feels a certain way. And then you kind of like, you know, take it for a spin around the block, and you're like listening to what needs to change inside of it. That's like, okay, this is poking out. This is feeling strange. Like, it's just that kind of massage, you know, that comes after the song, you know, initially written. And I do get romanced in that massage of like, oh yeah, this feels right. Like this, like, you know, kind of really paying attention to where the road humps are, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, a lot of these songs on this record, like, for example, like the song like Raining in Dallas, or like Star Child, or Lemon Cigarettes.
Sure.
I think of those as like kind of being like bigger stories than if you look at what the length of the song is. Like, they feel like very much more like short vignettes, more so than even a song. Like, it feels like you create so much mood and so much of a story in those kind of songs without like having without having to use, you know, 1,000 words or something like that.
Yeah. Man, I co-wrote Lemon Cigarettes and Pink Champagne with David Ramirez, and he came and sang on there, and then he came and sang harmonies, and then the girls that sing at the end are the backup singers for the Black Pumas. Mm-hmm. And so I was living in this like little Airstream trailer down South Austin, and it was like the AC was busted in there, and I was like sleeping on this couch in there, and I had this kind of like fever dream thing where this like black haired, like pale skinned lady wearing like a red sequin top, like comes out of this like billow of smoke in my laptop where I was watching some weird Bollywood movie. So I kind of thought I was dreaming, and then like she took this like gold sparkle pack of cigarettes out of her top, and it had like a black circle with a lemon in there. She took a cigarette out and lit it and like blew it out, and I woke up and I was like, what the fuck was that? So I just like grabbed my pen and I was like, this chick was smoking lemon cigarettes. And then I was hanging out with David a bunch. We were doing a co-write the next day. It was our first time to write together. And I was like, I'd just been thinking about me and David, like going out, and we'd just been drinking a bunch of rosé because it's summertime, you know? And so I put Lemon Cigarettes and Pink Champagne. So I go to his place, and it was almost Father's Day. And he was like, let's write a song about our dads or something like that. It's something cool. You know, it's almost Father's Day. It'd be nice. And then he was like, what's this title about? And I was like, dude, I had some like weird fever dream. I thought my laptop was imploding. And so that was kind of like, we just kind of came up with the story on the spot. That song came out in like 30 minutes, you know, and real organic, you know, but the like Star Child, you're saying like, it seems like kind of a bigger thing. Man, I was really hung up on that tune of like the progression of it. And I knew it wanted like a little bit of a left turn in there. And, I was really obsessed with this, Link Ray song called Golden Strings. And he's got the demo version of it. And I'd listened to the song a bazillion times. And then I was trying to find like a 45 of it online. And I found out that it's just a part from a Chopin etude, number 13. And I was like, what? It like blew my mind that he played this like kind of like Roy Orbison, you know, surfy guitar thing. And it was like a Chopin piece.
Yeah.
And so I pulled up the song, and there's this part, like it's got the A-B part, you know, and it's like really, it's got the beautiful, you know, back and forth melody. And then there's like this C part that just goes completely off the rails. And it's just like this, like avant-garde, like the time signatures change. It goes fucking nuts. And then it kind of just like dissipates and then floats back into the A-B part. And I was like, oh, that's what I should do. I'll make a wall of sound with, you know, a bunch of pedals, and have my friend Christy Hayes tell a poem in there, you know? Like, so that, you know, that kind of stuff was like, it felt like a movie to me, because it, you know, it was a big story. And there's a couple songs on there, you know, I'd just gotten out of a 9.5 year relationship, you know, and that was the first song I wrote about it. You know, the second song I wrote about it was Cowboy Band. And it felt, you know, like a movie. It felt like, you know, trying to, you know, tell a portion of my life, like some kind of like documentary, you know, but I wanted it to go there of like, to feel this kind of like lost space, you know, kind of like pause in space and time of like trying to like grab a hold of something real. And then, you know, and then that, you know, realness just kind of like leaks back into the chorus, you know, but that came from that Chopin thing, you know?
Yeah. You know, like there is very much that cinematic kind of feel and vibe to these. Like you feel like the black fade in, black fade out kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I'm a drama queen for sure, you know?
man, well, it works so well. And it, like, obviously with these songs being so Southwest, you know, you do feel like that, you know, like obviously out there you can, there's so much darkness, so much black at night, you know, there's not a lot of light pollution. So it does feel like you can just be zooming in on these little stories, these little vignettes.
Yeah. But I do feel like like somebody told me one time that they said they're listening to my songs and they're like, you're like an optimistic pessimist. and I thought that was, I was like, okay, cool. I haven't heard that one yet. You know, it's pretty cool. But I do find that like unknowingly when I'm writing it, you know, it might be a dark song or it might be a sad song, but there's just this little pinhole of hope in a lot of these songs that, like, you know, as much as I, you know, tap into, you know, like that, like, you know, a darkness and it's inside a song, there is that glimmer of light that like kind of is the guiding light for it, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's what is feeling a lot with like a lot of these like desert scapes and stuff that I wanted to like portray, you know, for the, you know, the theme of Westward was, you know, it's like you could still be in the blackest of night, but if you have that guiding star, it's just going to be there, even if you're not looking up, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, and that's so important for storytelling in general is, you know, you have to have that, like the redeeming light. If a song's so dark is so important, or vice versa, because, if not, like you kind of get fatigued by it, and it kind of, you can lose some of that dark mystery meaning without like something to like counterbalance it in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, you know, if it's too monotonous, then it's like, you know, I want people to listen to the whole record, not just like the first three songs, and they're like, okay, they sounded all the same, let's move on, or, you know, I'm catching the same vibes, you know, like time to move on, you know.
Yeah.
So that I think a lot of that is intentional of like, you know, just whenever, you know, in the record, like just kind of whenever you're like losing hope at some point in some song, or there's some kind of like, you know, there's a song like Something I Do, you know, which was written about, you know, me waking up on New Year's Day in my truck outside of Justine's, this French restaurant. And, like, you know, my date was like, you know, my girlfriend at the time, you know, was like, you know, where the fuck are we? My thumb was broken. I was in like a sequin tuxedo, and I was like, how do we get here? You know, I was like, I can do better than this, you know? So there's like songs like that where, you know, when you feel like all kind of hope is lost, and then like the next song will kick in and it just like whips your ass, you know, and it's like These Days or something like that. That's, you know, that just is like that pick me up, this going, all right, I said I can do better, and this is how I'm going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to leave them hanging.
Yeah. Like that song These Days, that has a lot of that petty kind of the Beatles Rubber Soul kind of feel, like that upbeat little tick, you know? That's what I heard.
I haven't heard. That's really, I mean, like, I love it. Like just hearing like other people's take on it. Cause it was like, when we went in, I was like, all right, this is going to be like, ZZ Top meets Joe Cocker meets T-Rex, you know, and it's like, I don't, you know, it's crazy. And so I'm really glad that you hear that. My dad would be happy about that. My dad is a huge Beatles fan. I mean, as well am I, you know.
Yeah. Well, there is, like, I just feel like there's that, maybe it is a little bit of that Joe Cocker thing too, that now that you mentioned that just that little bit of like this, I don't know, this, just some of that upbeat, some of that like not necessarily like full on psychedelia kind of stuff, but just a touch of it, you know.
I just wanted that. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like the chorus, these days I'm not concerned about all the ways everybody gets burned. It's just like, you know what, like, at the time when I wrote it, I was just like, you know what, I need to worry about myself and stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking. And just like, I'm going to do what it takes for me to feel good again. And, it was kind of, and like, so it's sandwiched in with that song Good Again, these days is the second to last track. And then that song Good Again is, track 2, so it's like, that track is like, I just want to, I'm craving this. Like, I need to be good again. I need to like rebuild myself and like, shed some of this darkness. And then, that's the initial thought of it. And then I feel like these days is like the action of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need to do this. Well, I'm going to fucking do it. So it's got a strut to it. That's like, you want to shake it off. And you're like, all right, I'm going to listen to the song and I'm going to go downtown,
Right. Like what, listening to this record this is not like it's not like a full on, comparison, but one of the things I kind of really felt listening to this record and like the EPs and like, just like obviously like the Mazzy Star, cover
sure.
and just all that kind of stuff. What I've been kind of thinking about is like, this is country music, but it's obviously you have all these little other influences and these other textures to make these cowboy songs into something that's blended with all these other things, right? And what that kind of reminded me of is like Lee Hazelwood back in the day, kind of having a country cowboy kind of thing, but also like not like it being a like a Merle Haggard song. He was like taking country songs in a completely different kind of country pop psychedelic kind of thing. And it's not exactly this apples and oranges or apples and apples here with this comparison, but I feel like there's a little bit of the same thing happening here for you on this.
Well, I hope so. I mean, because like, I feel like, I don't feel like it's fair to me to just go make one. I don't feel like just make one kind of music, it's like, because every song is different, and it's like, and if you're really like being a servant to what these songs want from you, like a lot of these songs changed, that they did sound way more country when we first started recording the record. Cause I was like, I'm going to make a country record because I'm playing all these dance halls and I'm writing all these country songs. So this is what it's going to be. It's going to be like a Nick Cave country album or something like that. And, then like, when you get into it and you start like dissecting the song and like, just, opening yourself up to what it wants, then it's like everything changes. And I'm not going to, I didn't want to stop that. I don't want to muzzle a song just because it needs to fit better with how people think they should imagine me, because if you know me, I live in Austin, Texas. I've lived here for 15 years. It's the birthplace of psychedelic music. If you think that doesn't seep into the country music scene here, and it's like, I grew up on Garth Brooks and Brooks and Dunn, but I also grew up on the Mamas and the Papas and Aretha Franklin and, stuff my parents liked. And, so it's kind of, I don't know. I think it's just a vibe, it's kind of like how I'm not in any way comparing myself to these guys at all, but like, when you think of like Dylan or Neil Young and they're like, oh, well, they do a country record. They do a rock and roll record. They do this and that. And you don't ever think of them as like just a country artist. You just think of them as an individual, like making music. And I think that's where I really want to like head towards, is just going like, well, to me, it is country music, the same way it is to, Kane Brown is country music to him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It just comes from a different place, you know? And, this just happens to be my unique little area of the world. So I'm glad that people are seeing it. And like, I think I'm kind of going off the rails here. But, and not taking it just for like, oh, well, he says he's a country artist. It should sound like this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, you know, like,
I feel like go ahead.
Oh, well, what I was going to say is, you obviously know this. I think a lot of people know this. Like country music is very, very, very easy to gatekeep. And I think like records like this or artists like you, and like, there's a lot of guys and girls making music right now in Texas that are inspired by a lot of rock and roll and blues and
yeah. Catherine Legender is one of them. She said to say, hey, I saw her and her husband yesterday, and I love them. They're great.
Yeah, actually,
she said to say hello.
Oh yeah, I actually had texted her earlier about something, and then she had said that, I heard that you're going to have Jonathan on. That's great. Yeah, blah blah. You know.
Yeah. What a sweetie. What a sweetie.
Yeah, I had her on probably a couple months ago, and she's obviously like a great artist and a great songwriter and like just killer,
like amazing singer, great songwriter, you know, just like, but yeah, what you're saying, it's like, yeah, people, I mean, especially here in Texas, people, I mean, I think country music's just in the air. It's just in your peripherals. It's just like, you hear it everywhere you go. You grew up with it. It's just kind of in your blood. But that doesn't also mean that everybody that's in a band today wasn't in a fucking rock and roll band in their 20s. It doesn't mean that they didn't, you know, listen to psychedelic music or Tejano or rap or like, you know, you grow up with this stuff and then like you go find your own, you know, which like you're like you go seek out a bunch of new things. And then I think like when you start becoming like trying to figure out what kind of artist you want to be, it's like the things that you grew up on. It's like what is I can't remember, was it Dave Chappelle was like, he's like, you never stop listening to the music that got you laid first, you know? Right. So yeah, so I cut a Mazzy Star song. Absolutely. You know, it's like, and how does that fit in my world? You know? Yeah, it just does, you know?
That's what, like, obviously, like, it's in the air. Like, if you're from Texas, you kind of, it's always around country music. You know? And not just like country music in the, what's on the radio, but like just, you're surrounded by country. There's something like, it's just like, I can't be able to say it better than you just saying it's in the air. It's in the ether.
It is. It's in the water, and it's like, you can't escape it. And I feel like even like the rock and roll bands, you know, that are coming out of Texas and stuff, it's like, you know, like I got my good buddy Aaron Barons, you know, is in that band Ghostland Observatory, and they're like electro, you know, disco dance band. You go hang out with Aaron, and he is boots and hat, and he's, you know, what's up, man? Hell yeah, come on, brother. You know, like just country as the day is long, and it's like, but that's just kind of how he grew up, you know, and it's and he's like, now I'm making the music that I'm interested in. You know, it doesn't mean that he's not from Texas. You know, that's he's pretty country dude. You know.
Yeah. You know. Side note, Aaron was like one of the. I guess he was probably the first person I interviewed when I was doing some writing at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal here in Lubbock. He was one of the first people. That I interviewed. They were playing a show here in Lubbock, and yeah, that was like just side note.
No, he's man. It's like he's in like a techno band, and he's a true Texas gentleman. He really is. You know.
Yeah. This episode is in part brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. While Blue Light is still closed due to the pandemic, there is a way to help A, support Blue Light, and B, get a sense of that normalcy by visiting bluelightlubbock.com, clicking on the merch tab, and getting some koozies, a vast array of t-shirts and caps, and yes, even a Blue Light flag. While it is such a bummer that live music is still on hold right now, I'm telling you, by getting some Blue Light Live merch, you're going to feel better. It just feels better wearing a t-shirt and ball cap and helping support your favorite bar. Again, that's bluelightlubbock.com. Click on the merch tab, get some merch. All right, back to the episode. I was going to ask you about, obviously you do some DJing too. How has that like expanded your palette of your sonic palette?
Well, so it kind of started as a side hustle. I went to this gig, and it was like this, like really like, hey, like I got you on the list of like the exclusive party kind of thing, you know? And I went and I was like astounded how bad the DJ was. And then I was even more astounded when I found out how much they were paying him. And I was like, man, I can do this shit. You know, cause I love, you know, all kinds of music. I'm a big fan, you know, of, you know, 60s psychedelic music. I'm a big fan of disco, bossa nova. I'm a big fan of like African dance music. So like like I said, a good song is a good song is a good song, you know, and I want to hear them all, you know? And so I kind of like, South by Southwest was coming up, and I was hanging with my buddy, David Wrangler from Vinyl Ranch. And he was like, hey man, you know anywhere we could DJ and, for South by? And I was like, yeah, I got a place, you know, yeah, you and me, we'll DJ it up. And he's like, you're a DJ? And I'm like, yeah, dude, of course, you know? And, so I lied to him and, told him I was a DJ. And then, so our DJ set was our first show. And then he kind of got mad at me and he was like, are you about to ruin my career? Like, no, but we did the show and it went great. And, you know, we did a bunch of disco and a bunch of party bangers and stuff. And it was just like, and then they gave me a residency at that venue, every Wednesday. So then that kind of put me on this like hunt for new music, of just going down rabbit holes and rabbit holes and rabbit holes of like, you know, there's a pool there. It's like a kind of like a, you know, Palm Springs kind of vibe. So I'm like searching out all the music that lives in that world and like trying to create a world that lives in that space, you know? So it was honestly like DJing to me is almost kind of like, it's like I sat down being a country, whatever artist, songwriter over here, and I picked the DJ up, and it's a total different brain space for me. Cause it's like, you know, if I'm doing something like in a nightclub where it's just like banging disco all night and people are sweaty and crawling across the floor, then it's like, it's your job to keep that moving. And I think I learned a lot of that from, you know, stage time of like how to get a crowd moving, you know, how to be a front man, you know, and it's like, you take that kind of energy into a DJ set of like, you know, when to grab them, you know, when you're losing them and what to do if you're losing them, like, got to keep it up, you know, and then, you know, let them have a break when they want. So yeah, I get really excited about it because it's been a total like journey, and I would have never found a lot of these songs unless I had just taken on that, you know, that little side hustle of just like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes I just gonna want to go dance to a bunch of disco all night, and might as well go spend 2 weeks listening to 4,000 disco tracks, you know? Why not?
Well, you know, that's so...
It's fun, you know?
Right. You know, I think it's also so important to... sometimes, like, I think, like, we pigeonhole everyone in, like, oh, you're a songwriter, you're a drummer, you're a country music star, you're, you know, a song singer, you know, you're just a singer, right. So often, like, if you look back at the old, the people from before this era, you know, they were doing all kinds of stuff. My example go-to is the guys up here from Lubbock, like Terry Allen. He thinks of himself as an artist, not a songwriter, but as an artist. And that means the visual side, the sculpting, the songwriting stuff, and like people like Joe Ely, you know, he's a poet and written books and stuff, and of course, like he had that one record where he did it all on a Mac, and this is back in the '80s when that was like, what is this, you know? So I can see like that being very, like DJing being something that is very much similar to working that other side of the brain, and like being able to, you know, really kind of like, you know, you step out into something that you don't necessarily know as well, and it just like helps you just become more well-rounded as an artist.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, there's a songwriter artist named Butch Hancock, and he's in the Flatlanders and stuff. We did a show in Oklahoma with Turnpike Troubadours, and we were talking after the show, and I said, "Hey man, I just took a couple pictures during your show. I'll send them to you." And he was like, "Oh, cool. Like, are you a photographer?" And I was like, "Nope, I just hang out, you know." And he's like, "Cool. What do you know?" We ended up staying we're in the same hotel. It's kind of a little motor lodge, so we ended up sitting out there on the porch, you know, drinking beers and stuff that night with him and his wife and a couple people from the show. And it's like, he was like, "What are your hobbies?" And I really sat down and thought, and I was like, "Man, I don't think I have any hobby. I really don't think I have any." And he grabbed my shoulder and goes, "Are you fucking kidding me?" He's like, he's like, "You're going to sabotage the one thing that you love if you don't have another artistic outlet to go to and build and fill that well." He's like, if you can't go somewhere else and get that same artistic energy and then be able to bring it back to your songs, he's like, you're going to fuck your songs over every time. He's like, it's your duty to have as many hobbies and stay inspired on a daily basis. He's like, it is your job as a songwriter. And he was like, go home and buy a fucking camera now. And I did. And I went home and I was like, you know, and just started like taking pictures. And then when I started, I would bring my camera to my Wednesday night residencies, and I would just take portraits, black and white portraits of everybody there that was like partying and getting down and dancing. And like, so it's all these like kind of sweaty palm tree, poolside, like late night, you know, kind of, you know, bombastic photographs of just cool people and great people that are hanging around and just enjoying the music. And it's like, I'm like, "Hey, can I take a portrait of you? And then I'll just send it to you on Instagram. You can do whatever you want with it." You know? And so after like 6 or 7 months of like, I just took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of portraits of people. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to get a better lens. And, you know, or when I felt practiced enough, you know. And I was going down to Mexico to stay on a friend's cattle ranch with him for a week, and picked up a good lens, you know, a good prime lens before I went down there, and was like, and it's like, I'll go back and look at these photographs that I did, you know, and they inspire songs. They like say something, there's something inside them that's like, there's a song title in there. There's a moment in there that I didn't see when I took the picture, and I'm just looking at it now, and now I can understand it. You know, and it's just that. So yeah, it's like Butch was a big part of that, of like, you know, I should be a DJ. This would be great. I should get a camera. This would be like, why not? Who says I can't? You know, and I see a lot of bands. You know, I remember seeing the Yeah, and so they were like, okay, we're going to do the show, and then after the show, the guitar player is going to go DJ at this club. And it was like, you know, you get to the club and there's a $10 cover charge, you know? And so it's like, you do a tour and then you go DJ the after parties, and now you're paying your band out. Now you're paying for hotels, you know?
Right.
And so it's kind of like, it really helps out a lot, you know, of just having this like fun little side project. It's like, okay, wow. Like, man, I can make my rent plus, you know, in a month, just doing like side gigs and just things that are just for fun, you know?
Yeah.
on like weird off nights when I'm not on tour, you know?
Right. Yeah. I guess it was probably, I don't know how long ago, maybe like 10 years ago, 15. There was this article in Texas Music Magazine that just was like highlighting Butch as a song or as a photographer. And there was some really cool photos that he had in there. I really don't have like any, I got like one Butch Hancock story, and that was like, he was doing this talk, this lecture talk up at Texas Tech. And he was talking about his time at Tech and how he was interested in architecture. And he had been like an architecture major. And
Yeah.
he was just kind of like going, it was so, because I guess like when I went up there to watch, I was expecting him to, hey, this is just going to be about songwriting, you know, just the songwriter part. And it was almost all about like all the other things, like the architecture, the photography.
Yeah. He did tell me a little bit about art. He showed me some buildings he had worked on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, that's an expensive hobby, dude. Yeah. But he's like, well, it pays the bills. And then, whenever I can be an artist, like when I want to do a tour or want to like get together with the Lubbock boys, then that's there too, but
yeah,
but it's just like submerging yourselves in like artistic outlets that like feed each other. And it's, like you think of him as an artist because he's not doing anything that's not artistic. He's never not doing something that's not, he's like, doing lectures, playing music, building things. He's like, he's what you would call an artist, a true artist,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, people like me is like, that's kind of it's what you're hoping to be,
Yeah.
It's what you set out to be. And you got to dig a little past your insecurities of, figuring out what you really are. But I think once you kind of lose yourself in it, you're like, look up and people are like, hey man, you're an artist. And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You think that? Cool. Like, wow.
One of the things he did at the end was he played 3 or 4 songs, but like what he did was he was talking about how he had a Super 8 and he would attach it to the front, or I guess the dash of his truck, and then like drive around Lubbock to all these little small towns and then just like
Mm-hmm.
record on the road. And he was talking about how, this was back in the 70s and he didn't even know what he was going to do with the film or nothing like that. And then, fast forward 40 years later, he's like, I found what they were kind of meant for. And he's like, I don't even know if this really works, but he fast forward all the Super 8 film, and they were all kind of about 3-4 minutes long, him driving and seeing all these cotton rows, these cotton fields on the side, and, going from Lubbock to these small towns and just the traffic and like not even
Sure.
like traffic and all that stuff. And then he hit all the lights down and he stood up on like a desk where he was kind of like where he was right in the middle of the road. And then he played like 4 songs and it was just like one of those, like, I'll never forget that. It was like, he's never going to do that again. I don't know. But and I'm trying to think of what he played.
Cool.
He played, I know he played If You Were a Bluebird, and he played a Towns cover. But like that's what I remember. But I don't know, it was just one of those. I'll just never kind of forget that thing. Him doing that.
He changed a lot. He changed a lot of things in my life just by that one chance meeting.
Mm-hmm.
That like really, I think I was really, when I moved to Austin, I wanted to be Townes Van Zandt. I wanted to be Chris Christopherson, and it was just like, it just, I don't know. When I got here, there were already those guys. So, but it's like, you want to live in this kind of like desolate world where you drink a bunch and you're like, I'm going to do everything fucking wild to like get that experience. And then you get so fucked up that you forget them, and then it's like, what was the point,
Right.
But like, just, I think that one conversation with him, like, encouraged me to kind of like just just move my insecurities aside and be like, look, you want to be a songwriter? Be a better songwriter. This is how you do it. Here's some tips from a pro that are like, hey, if you want to be an artist, go be an artist. That means do everything artistic that you can, you know, and like get your hands dirty on every way, you know, learn something about it, read something about, you know, just the journey of it, you know, like just get your hands on as many things as you can and just create, you know. I appreciate you moving this, call, you know, man, my uncle had passed away about an hour before we were supposed to be on the phone the other day. And I mean, it's like, we have a very, very short time here, you know, and I think to be able to like document some emotions and put as much material out into the world as you can to like, if, you know, I think that's all people want, is they want their name to live on in some way. You know, you want to leave your mark. And for me, like, my songs are my mark. My photographs are my mark. The nights that people come out to a DJ set and like have a total blast, that's my mark, you know? And it's kind of like, why wouldn't you want to just do that all the time? And hopefully people will pay for it, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, like it's one of those things where, you know, I think a lot of times, like there's a lot of middle ground with art, right? Most people are not going to become George Strait, but like you're going to have, like you have an impact on the people around you, you know what I mean? And that's just as fulfilling, you know, especially like if you know those people, or you were able to actually, those people come up to you, you know, and you hear those stories back. It's important.
It would be cool to be friends with George Strait, though.
Same. Yeah, I always like...
I would never pay for dinner. Never. Yeah. George, you got this, right?
Well, I'm going to go to the
if he's listening, George, take me out for some steak. Let's do it. Come on, baby.
I know. Hopefully he's listening and he'll come on the podcast sometime. I'll just...
I hope he is, too, man. What a treat. You know, what a treat that would be if, like, George Strait was listening to your podcast. You know?
All right, that's it for this week. Be sure to check out Jonathan's forthcoming record, Westward, out August 21st. Check out episode sponsors Desert Door and the Blue Light Live in Lubbock, Texas. Thanks for listening to New Slang, and we will see you next week.